All right, welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
This time we're looking at Isis Morales,
Right.
maybe better known to you as the new trophy wife on YouTube.
Right.
So basically, I mean, the short version is she kind of built her whole brand around this idea of,
Yeah.
teaching women how to attract a rich partner.
Mm-hmm.
And then she puts out this video titled, I Married a Monster. I think maybe some people listening might not even know who she is.
Okay.
So you want to just give like a really quick
Yeah, sure.
rundown.
So Isis Morales, like you said, she's a YouTuber.
Great.
And she called herself the new trophy wife.
Mm-hmm.
And her content was all about, I don't know, like leveling up your lifestyle,
Oh.
like attracting wealthy partners,
Yeah.
hypergamy,
Hypergamy.
which is just a fancy word for marrying up, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And she had a lot of followers.
Yeah, she had a ton.
Like a
It
ton.
was very, like, luxury focused, right?
Yeah, it was all about, designer handbags and
Yep.
private jets and...
Exotic vacations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah, so I think her message really appealed to a lot of women.
It did.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden she comes out with this video
I know.
called I Married a Monster.
It's crazy.
And it's just this total, like, 180
Right.
from her normal content.
Yeah.
The podcast episode actually said that she had already left him like a month before the video even came out.
Oh, wow. You have to wonder, like,
Yeah.
how much of what we're seeing online is even real?
Yeah, exactly.
It's all a performance in a way.
Right. And it made me wonder, like, was she staying silent about it to, like, try to protect her brand, or was it something else? The podcast actually quotes her as saying,
Okay.
I felt trapped by the image I had created. I was afraid to admit that my life wasn't perfect.
Really powerful.
Yeah.
Because it really does get to, like, the core of it.
Yeah.
Like, she was almost living a double life,
Yeah.
And the pressure to keep that going,
I know.
especially when you're making money off of it,
Yeah.
it must have been intense.
So it makes you kind of rethink the whole trophy wife thing, too, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you think they have these perfect lives.
Right.
And it's like, well,
Not necessarily.
Well-
I mean, anyone can experience abuse. It doesn't matter how much money you have
yeah.
or what your relationship looks like on the surface.
And I mean, the reaction online has been
oh, I bet.
insane.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people are supporting her,
Uh,
of course. But then there's a lot of backlash, too.
It's always so messy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like when something like this happens online.
It's like everyone has an opinion.
Yeah. And they're not afraid to share it.
No, not at all.
Which, I mean, this is a really good example of how, like,
Mm.
these situations are so complex.
Yeah.
You can't just, like,
Right.
see something on social media and assume you know the whole story.
Exactly. And it's like,
Yeah.
it really shows you how much power these platforms have.
Yeah.
Like, on the one hand, they give people a voice, which is great.
Yeah.
But then they also create these echo chambers
Mm-hmm.
where it's so easy to just spread misinformation.
Totally.
And it's really hard to know what's true and what's not.
So the podcast actually, like, outlined these 6 lessons based on Isis's story.
Okay.
And I thought they were really interesting. And if you're not a young woman,
There's some really valuable stuff in there.
absolutely. And, like, for anyone who's thinking about relationships.
Yeah.
Or just, like, how to navigate life in general.
Yeah, it's all about like
Mhm.
healthy relationships and making choices that prioritize your own well-being.
Right. And what I like about these lessons is that they're grounded in this really, like, raw and honest story.
Yeah.
So it's not just, like, theoretical advice. It's,
Well-
like, connected to this real person's experience, which I think makes it a lot more impactful.
Okay. So should we just kind of go through them?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So the first one is all about being true to yourself.
Okay.
Don't buy into pressure from other people to promote an image that isn't really you.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so important, especially nowadays with social media.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
There's so much pressure to, like, curate this perfect life,
I know.
and it's just not realistic.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, and it can really make you unhappy if you're
Right.
always trying to fit into some mold that doesn't feel right.
It's like that saying,
What's that?
comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
The more you're like comparing yourself to
Mm.
other people online,
Right.
the more you lose sight of like,
Of yourself?
yeah, your own authentic self.
Exactly.
So I feel like Isis's story is kind of a cautionary tale. Like, it shows what can happen when you build your whole identity around
Mhm.
like getting validation from other people.
Totally. And especially when that validation is coming from, online fame,
Yeah.
which can be so fleeting.
Yeah.
You know?
It can disappear overnight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So lesson number 2.
Okay, so lesson number 2 is all about trusting your gut.
Okay.
Like if something feels off in a relationship,
Yeah.
even if the person seems perfect, like on paper,
Right.
you need to pay attention to those red flags.
I think that's so hard, though.
It is hard,
Especially when you're like,
especially in the beginning.
yeah, excited about someone.
Right.
You know, you're like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, you don't want to see the bad stuff. But sometimes those gut feelings
Yeah.
are trying to tell you something really important.
They are. It's like
Yeah.
your subconscious is picking up on something.
Yeah, it's like those subtle cues
It-
you don't consciously notice.
And especially when it comes to something like
Abuse?
abuse.
Like that can be
Yeah.
literally life-saving
It really can.
to trust your gut.
Yeah, I think we tend to downplay intuition.
Yeah.
You know, we're like, oh, it's just a feeling.
Yeah, like you have to be logical.
Right. But actually, our gut feelings are really powerful.
Yes, especially in relationships.
Yeah,
So yeah, definitely trust your gut.
definitely.
And then, of course, there's the lesson about prioritizing your safety,
Oh, of course. Yeah.
which is like, this would go without saying,
You would think so.
but it's so important to have a plan
Mm-hmm.
to protect yourself, emotionally, financially, physically.
Yeah. And I think that's
Yeah.
especially important for young women who
Yeah.
might be, more susceptible to manipulation
Right.
or coercion.
Yeah. It's about knowing your worth,
Yeah.
setting boundaries,
Yes.
and having the means to leave a situation if it becomes unsafe.
And it's not just about physical safety either. It's
Yeah.
like having a support system.
Yes.
Having your own money.
Yeah.
Like being financially independent.
Yeah.
Being clear about what you need.
Yes.
What your boundaries are.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is so important for any relationship.
Yes. It's like setting yourself up for success
Exactly.
in a way.
Yeah.
Okay. So the fourth lesson
Okay.
is all about not basing your entire identity on your relationship.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to do that,
It is.
especially I think when you're young.
Yeah. Like when you're, in your teens, 20s.
Yeah, you're like, oh, this is my person.
This is my person. This is my whole life.
Right. And then if things go wrong,
Yeah.
it's like your whole world falls apart.
It's devastating.
Yeah.
So it's so important to have a strong sense of self
Yes.
outside of your relationship.
Totally.
Like you should be rooted in your own passions, your own values, your own aspirations.
It's like having your own friends.
Yes.
Having your own hobbies.
Yeah.
Having your own goals.
Yeah.
Like all of that is so important.
So you're not just like putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. Because if that basket breaks,
Then you're screwed.
left with nothing.
Okay, so the podcast also talks about this idea of
Yeah.
redefining strengths. Because leaving a toxic relationship
Mm-hmm.
can be seen as like a failure.
Right. Like you're giving up.
Yeah, but they're saying it's actually like
Yeah.
the most courageous thing you can do.
It is.
Especially if it means like walking away from a certain lifestyle or image.
Right. Because you're
Yeah.
choosing yourself.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
choosing your well-being
Yeah.
over, whatever external things you might be giving up.
Right.
And that takes a lot of strength.
It's like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
It hurts in the moment,
Yeah,
but then it allows you to like heal and move on.
exactly. And I think it's also important to remember that
Yeah.
seeking help is not a sign of weakness.
Oh, yeah.
Like it actually takes a lot of strength to admit that you need help
It does.
and to reach out for it.
Yeah.
So never be afraid to ask for help.
Okay. And then the last lesson
Okay.
is about separating idealism from reality. No one can live up to those possibly high standards
Right.
that we see in movies and on social media. So as we're kind of getting towards the end of our deep dive here, I want to come back to you, the listener. What are you taking away from all of this?
What's resonating with you on a personal level?
Because this conversation doesn't end here.
Right.
We want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, share your reflection. The whole point of this is to spark a conversation
Encourage critical thinking.
and hopefully empower you to make choices that lead to a more fulfilling life.
A more authentic life.
Yeah, and that's a journey we're all on together.
We are.
We're all learning and growing, and
Yeah.
and I think it's through these conversations that we can create a more compassionate world.
A more supportive world.
And I think it starts with
Yeah.
those individual choices we make every day,
Like the content we consume,
the conversations we have.
the way we treat each other.
We all have a role to play.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you enjoyed it.
We hope it gave you some things to think about.
And until next time.
We'll see you then.
J Talks. J